Aloha. Your favorite friend with questionable character, Aloha Mr. Hand, coming to you this fine Monday evening, courtesy of our friends at From the 108 and powered by Jack Daniels. So first I want to give a special shout out to someone. Just want to say, Aloha Porter. Hope you are well, my friend. With that being said, I wanted to move on to the subject of tonight's video. For those of you who may or may not know, doesn't matter at this point, last year I did this and I am doing this again this year. I am writing a series of blogs about the 108 tourney. It's called 108 Bracketology. And within those blogs, I write about who I think some favorites could be, who I think some virgin dancers could be. I'm sure you can get the hint of what that is. And some bubble candidates. Those are people who may have committed a faux pas in one way or another, and knowingly or unknowingly as well, that need to be called out for it. Now remember a couple of things about the 108 tourney. It's like the book 1984 and the story of 1984. Big Brother's always watching. When you least expect it, something might happen, and it will be stored in memory banks in order to be used at a later point. Not only by the selection committee, not only by me, but potential opponents if you make the tourney. Always remember that. And some people have asked, how do they get into the 108 tourney? Well, there's a couple of suggestions I could give you. There is no one concrete formula saying if you post so many tweets or talk about this much with the White Sox or have this view. None of that applies. It is based on a couple of different things. You have to be active on Twitter. That's number one. Number two, yeah, it would be nice if you talked about the White Sox, but that's sort of secondary. Number three, always have elements of 108ing involved. And number four, and I can't stress number four enough, be funny. I know for a fact 2 of the 3 members of the selection committee judge humor in tweets very, very, very highly. Which brings me to another point. I am not a member of the selection committee. I find out the tourney candidates about 5 minutes before we do a live video podcast announcing the field. I find out 5-10 minutes before everyone else does. So I have no inside knowledge of who's in, who's out, who's playing who, or anything else. I find out just before you, and I have to figure out what I'm going to say as I go onto this video podcast, which will be taking place sometime in March. The date hasn't been set yet, but I will keep you up to date on what dates are being targeted, what the final date will be, and everything else. So always bear that. Oh, and when I talk about the humor, always bear that in mind. If you are funny, that will go a long way. Conversely, if you act like a jerk and you're ignorant to other people and you act like your opinion's the only one that matters, everyone else is dumb or wrong or anything like that, that will impact you negatively. Remember that. Always remember those things. So with that being said, I wanted to go on to the blog I posted in November, which was about some favorites I see, some people who I think have a chance to go a long way in the tourney. Now, White Sox Dave is the 3-time defending champion, and he's built his own little dynasty. He's like the Yankees of the 108 tourney. He doesn't win, he demolishes. So obviously he's a favorite. I haven't listed them here because that's sort of a given and I don't need to say anything else about it because everybody knows. So the people I'm going to name are some other people who I think can go a long way. And I'll give reasons why. The first person is My Sox Summer. He's the guy who gets your 108ing gear out the door the same day. He takes edibles and does podcasts at the same time, which provides for great, great, great entertainment. And he just dominates the new age dad lifestyle. I mean, he's a cargo short wearing new age lifestyle dad. How can you go wrong against him? How can you vote against him, in all honesty? And to the one person I know who's shaking his head right now, muttering stuff, fuck you, Sal. Second is Wally Money. If you've ever had the opportunity to go to a weekend series and spend time with Wally during the weekend, or even better, travel with Wally, you understand that he is a man who just does not believe in one. He lives the 108ing lifestyle. If you were to take a look in the dictionary at the definition of 108ing, there's probably a picture of Wally on there. So always remember that. Next person is King Nam. Now, the guy ate 149 and a half hot dogs, for God's sakes. I mean, come on. You know, and he's finding new and creative ways to eat hot dogs. Last week, as an example, he put 2 hot dogs on a McRib sandwich and ate the whole thing. I mean, God bless him. God bless his stomach. I mean, seriously. And plus, he puts up with his wife, which should get him points for that too. Because I think, in all honesty, I think she is trying to kill him and collect the insurance money. But finally, the last person is Pockets125, a.k.a. Amy, a.k.a. Queen Nam, for putting up with King Nam and all his gastrointestinal fun that he brings after spending a Wednesday at the ballpark on Dollar Dog Day, or as some people call it, Dollar Dong Day. She gets all the credit in the world for having to deal with that. And it sounds like he was in great form this past weekend too. So she deserves a lot of credit for putting up with that as well. Let me just say this before people start. Yes, she is a Cub fan. Yes, we tolerate her anyway. That's how awesome she is. So accept it. And again, if you start attacking her again for being a Cub fan, remember the rules about humor versus being ignorant and belligerent. Remember, how you interact with others plays a factor. Just remember that. And more so, how you interact with the 108 itself plays a factor. Hint, hint. So this brings me to the blog that will be coming out in the next couple days, which is one of my favorites to do every year, and that is the bubble candidates. And how does one become a bubble candidate? Well, generally you would be a candidate who looked like you would have a strong chance to make the tourney, and you do something or say something or tweet something that has a serious impact to that candidacy. Think of it this way. It's like the book 1984. Big Brother's always watching and always storing little tidbits away to be used at a later point. Now that applies to yours truly, that applies to the 108 committee, and that applies to smart tourney participants. And I have an example of one that happened actually last night, Sunday night. So you'll see what I mean coming up shortly. So the first person who is a bubble candidate is a guy who was the star of the 2020 108 tourney. He lost in the finals to White Sox Dave, and that is, of course, Summer of George. Now, a lot of people have been saying that Summer of George should be a number 1 seed or the overall number 1 seed because of his performance in last year's tourney. Well, that's great. He was a Cinderella last year. George has committed a couple of major faux pas, to be honest with you. The first is George likes to talk a lot about how King Nam should be afraid of him and how he's going to take King Nam's hot dog throne and everything else, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to talk stuff like that, you can't lose a hot dog eating contest, let alone lose it to a Cub fan, which he did do in August at a Chicago Dogs game. That's right. Summer of George lost a hot dog eating contest to a Cub fan, Ron Luce. Dude, how can you be taken seriously if that happens? I mean, honestly, how can you really be taken seriously? There's a lot of this going on, but when it comes time to put up, you don't. So just remember that. Next candidate is a guy who I exchange messages with frequently, mostly about music, a little bit of baseball, but mostly music, sometimes movies as well. And that's Mailman Jack. Jack, you're my man, but you're our favorite mailman this side of Newman. And yet, you're a mailman who breaks his arm on a tree branch. Now, if you would have said you were attacked by a dog, I would have let it slide. But you broke your arm on a tree branch? Really? How? I don't get what were you trying to swing like Tarzan or something? What the heck is that? Then to add insult to injury, he posts within the last week, I want to say the last week and a half, that after his first day back at work, he was winded. You're a mailman. You work like 5 minutes a day, for God's sakes. How can you be winded? Calm down there, Newman. Next candidate, James Fegan. This is a given because he doesn't take it seriously and he doesn't understand the honor and the privilege, not the right, but the honor and the privilege of being in this tourney is. Also, James, you got to fix that COVID hair, man. If you saw him on those Zoom calls with that hair all over the place, I don't know what was going on there. Dude, you got to fix the hair. All right. Moving on to the next one. Now, this is a guy who I don't necessarily think he's in trouble or on the bubble or anything, but he has to be on this list just for one reason. Just so I can say, fuck you, Sal. Moving on to the next candidate is, I mentioned earlier that, remember, Big Brother's always watching and might include your friends who are giving people ammo for the tourney. The next candidate is Sam Mendelson, and Sam is a great guy. He'll buy you the first round of beer, he'll buy you the last round of beer, and he'll try and buy every round in between. A fantastic person. But Sam committed a fashion faux pas that his friend Austin had to call out on Twitter over the weekend. Really, Sam? What the heck is that? Come on, man, you're better than that. What in the world? What are you, like 80 years old, living at Del Boca Vista? Come on, man. What the heck was that? All right, and the last candidate, everybody's favorite. Now, there's a variety of reasons why people would think he's on this list, but I'm not going to use his irrational hatred of Paul Konerko and Scott Pasetnik. I'm not going to use him constantly arguing with three-time 108 tourney champion White Sox Dave, arguing to a point where it sounds like the two of them are married. I'm not going to even ding him on his overall approach and demeanor on Twitter and how he interacts with people. No. How can you vote for this mug? I mean, honestly, look at that thing. Looks like a cross between a catcher's mitt and a dog's ass. How can you vote? How can you seriously vote for Ken W.O.? I mean, come on, really. I don't know what to tell you, folks. That's all I got now. And I'll be back probably sometime in January with the latest. And if we find out anything as far as dates, tourney selection criteria, anything like that, I will be certain to let you know. Hope everyone has a great night. And since we're in December, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. And with that, I'm out. Bang.